This video outlines the routine or cycle of analysis that I like to teach students to follow as they're analysing an argument analysis text. Basically, you'll see here it's presented on 2 pages, and this is available for download from the main page. So the first page is a series of 6 dot points, and the second page is the same information presented in a sort of a graphical format that emphasises that it is a cycle that starts up here with our point 1 and moves through a series of steps and then returns to the top again and starts all over again. So over here you'll see we start over here and we move through a series of steps and we return to here where we then pick up again over here. So basically, as you move through the text, you're going to find key ideas that are in the text or key strategies within the text, and there might be 3, there might be 4, 5, 6 or 8. You'll find a certain number of them, and hopefully as you go through the text you will be able to do something like I recommend to people that they circle them in the text, box them up, literally draw things around them and work through, find out what they are. So as you then, once you've found them, you work your way through the text, going and draw a line where one finishes and another begins. And you need to, well, first of all, identify that it's there. That's what you're doing when you're boxing it up and drawing a line. But then you need to have a think about and then explain what that persuasive strategy or idea is, and use some quotes from the text or a quote from the text to explain what that idea is, or put it in your own words if you like. But the most important thing is that you connect up. You don't just say what that idea is, you connect that idea up to the contention. It's got to be there for a reason, and that reason is all about persuading your audience to come around to agreeing with the writer's contention. Okay, so think about coming up with a sentence that expresses the contention, whatever that is, then uses the word because. The contention should be supported because, and then give your reason or strategy. Okay, and if you can kind of put the idea into words with its connection to the contention, then you really got on top of what you need to do to kind of introduce that idea. All right. Once you've done that, you need to then do a little bit of extra analysis, and that analysis, okay, from there, what you need to do is you need to explain how the idea is intended to influence the reader. How does the idea work to persuade? What is it about that idea that the reader, the audience, this audience in particular, is likely to find persuasive or influential? Okay, why is the writer using this idea on the audience to achieve the purpose of persuading them to agree with the contention? So you need to, and I'm not talking half a page here, I'm talking about a sentence, one sentence that makes some kind of analysis of how that idea, what it is about that idea. Is it using logic? Is it using emotions? Is it connecting up with a view or a value that the audience might have? What is it about that idea that is helping the writer persuade the reader? Okay? Once you've done that, then you move on to looking for a persuasive technique. So look for a persuasive technique that supports that idea you just analysed, and then quote it. Often it's things like powerful words, but it could also be the use of evidence. It could be a device like repetition or alliteration, or it could be the image, for example. And so it's only once you've actually outlined what the argument is, what the idea is, and why that idea is persuasive, likely to be persuasive to the audience, that you then bring in a persuasive technique that supports that idea, okay? And you use a quote there. From there, and you do that in one sentence again. From there, you need to explain how that technique helps to steer the reader towards agreeing with the idea that it's expressing or to the overall contention. So why is the writer using that technique on this audience in relation to that idea? And again, it's about being precise here. That might take you one sentence to get that analysis out. It doesn't have to be long. It just needs to be effective, okay? And from there, you're finished with that idea. And you go back to finding and identifying the next strategy or idea. And then the thing to understand is that you complete this cycle of analysis for each of the ideas in the text as you go through them. Okay? You complete it for each idea as you go through it, and you may have only 3 ideas, you might have 6. I think this one has another page. So in each case, you work through that cycle of analysis of identifying first the idea, then explaining how that idea works to persuade the reader, then looking to some persuasive techniques, and then how do those persuasive techniques work to support the particular idea that you found them illustrating, and move forward in that fashion. So these cycles of analysis, they often are very short. They may be only a few sentences long. If it's quite a long chunk of text with a lot of persuasive techniques in it, you might spend a bit more time on it, but the process remains the same. Okay, so what I just had there in a flowchart, numbered flowchart, is now represented, diagrammatically here. It's exactly the same, and again, you can download this and have a look at it. Here we're talking about something that might be 5 or 6 sentences long. It's starting up here with identifying a strategy or an idea up here, and you might note if you're returning to an earlier idea that you've already done, you can do that. But from there, you identify it, you explain it, maybe use a quote to explain it. From there, you move around to the intended effect on the reader. How does it target a view or value of the reader? What view or value is that? Is it using emotions? Is it using logic? How is that idea working, being used to persuade the reader? What's the mechanism by which it persuades the reader? Once you've been able to explain that, you've laid your foundations, okay? You need to be able to explain the idea and how that idea is working to persuade the reader before you can show how a persuasive technique is then used to enhance the discussion. So from there, look for a persuasive technique that actually supports the idea you've just mentioned. Quote it. You can do this more than once if you want to here. You can bring in the visual if the visual's related to that idea or the title of the piece. You can bring in several different pieces of several different persuasive techniques if there are several, and just keep cycling around on this point for a few seconds. And then from there, you need to be analysing, not just pointing out that those things are there, but also analysing how the techniques themselves work. What is it about use of the word cruel that is likely to make the writer feel that the government's actions are too heavy-handed? Talk about the connotations of the words. How does the actual device work, to persuade the reader towards that idea, and you're done, all right? And then move on to the next idea and start again at point 1. So what this means is when you get an idea, you're really likely to be only talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4 or 5 sentences of precise analysis on that idea, maybe more if you've got a couple more persuasive techniques. And from there, you're on to the next idea, okay? Now, clearly, that must make it really obvious to you how important it is that you understand what the writer's contention is and what the writer's main ideas are before you start to write. Okay, it's not going to be enough to just pick out some persuasive techniques. You really do need to base your analysis in understanding what the key ideas in the text are. Thanks for listening.